My name is John Vaught. The first time I worked in the mill was in 1965. We're looking at close to 40 years. Before I went to college, I worked in the 8-inch mill. I worked for Republic Steel. Started with my career in the steel industry, by and large, was all with Republic. So I was a laborer, a plant manager, a corporate officer, did a lot of different things over the years. And my dad, who's still living, 91, worked in Warren, and his uncle was in Warren. I think that's how I ended up getting fascinated. I had a cousin over there. How I got fascinated with the steel business and Republic Steel and ended up going to work for him.
So I got out of school, and my parents didn't have a lot of money. I mean, this was I was going to work, so I started doing this, and I made good money, and I just stuck with it. From August of '74 to December of 2002, 28 years, yeah. I planned to get my 30 years, and the retirements, when I started there in the mid '70s, the retirements were pretty decent there. They paid your benefits. I would have been 49 when I had my 30 years, get out, do something else, but that didn't work out. Yeah, my father worked there down here in Massillon as a carpenter before World War II. My uncle is Myron Netzley. He started there working in the Enduro, weighing coils, and worked his way up to a vice president of the company in Cleveland. My first day there, I worked in bar finish number 2, and I worked for a turn foreman named Audie Williams. When I first started there, I just labored, just kind of cleaning up and just kind of breaking in on the different things, you know.
I started right out of high school in September 14th, 1964. When I started there as a hand grinder of finished steel, and I worked for a foreman named Paul Weltlich. I did about every job in the department. I went then to work as a test expediter on a mill, and then from there I went to what they call mill inspecting.
This is William Gregg. I got a job at the mill at 73, so
How long did you work in the steel industry?
29 and a half years. Well, started out labor, worked in Enduro for 2 years, and I transferred down the 18-inch mill. I worked labor down there, worked the cradle, worked the hotbed, and I was stranded. Then I was a turn foreman, or a 10%er, then and a roller.
When did you start working in the steel mills?
June of 1947,
And how long did you work for?
approximately a year and a half. I was supposed to be an electrician
Okay, why do you say supposed to be?
because I didn't know anything about it in the open hearth furnace area.
At the Massillon plant?
Massillon plant.
June 23rd, 1969. Oh, I was the head of labor relations.
Okay.
I was the hands-on guy for the company in labor relations. My son for just about a year. Also, my daughter one summer worked over at Burger in Canton at summer job. Was a good ride. Was a good ride. But what I did is I had a false sense that there were rewards to be had for loyalty to a company. And a company can't return loyalty, only people can.
1968. Started out as a hand grinder. Then I moved to the press. I was a press operator, worked on a loading gang. I was a janitor for a while, ran the meat art, just a little bit of everything. I worked about 34 and a half years. My father worked in the Enduro division for about 2 years.
I started out in '59 as a scarper helper. Then I became a foreman. In '61, I joined the Army. Then I became a chainman. That was a gravy job. And then I went into the Labor Transportation Department, and then when I was hired back in '75, I worked for 28 years there. My father worked in a Canton plant and he retired with 34 years.
1978. When I came out of the service, I was hauling steel on the outside, and I hauled so much in the Republic that eventually they said, you know, why don't you come work for us? And so in 1978, I went to work for them, and I worked my whole time in transportation. But I drove those straddle buggies that Paul talked about. I drove semi, I drove the dump truck, the straight truck where you made deliveries of oxygen bottles and stuff like that. Yeah, we were all, if you want to say, victims of the bankruptcy and the Massillon hot roll plant shutting down. And yeah, I was just short of 25 years when they shut down in December of 2002. My dad spent 42 years in the Canton plant at 8th Street as the ore bridge operator at the blast furnace.
When did you start working in the steel mills?
20th of October, 1940. Republic Steel then. Well, I was in the inspection department. At the end, I was at the head of it all then. Okay. When you get to be chief inspector, you're at the head of the whole inspection division then. My father worked when it was the old Central Steel. I had a father working. I had a brother with a craneman. I've got nephews, a lot of nephews and relatives. I can't name who all was there, but it must have been about at least 8 of us there. Everybody that was in there had to wear a steel helmet. They had to wear safety glasses, and they had to wear steel tip toe. Working conditions, they were superb as far as I'm concerned. I mean, working conditions were what you made it. In other words, you see, we had certain rules and regulations. We had the safety code that we had down there.
Considering that it was a steel mill and there was a lot of noise and a lot of hot steel and heavy stuff going on around us, yeah, I think the conditions were good. If you needed equipment, they usually tried to get it for you. A lot of the women we had were really, really good employees.
In my lifetime, they were pretty darn good. By the 60s, most of the really hot, crummy, dangerous jobs had been automated, and we were constantly trying to figure out ways to take the difficult part out of the physical and the difficult part out of the work. And you know, we had a mindset that if we could keep the workers' hands off the steel, we'd not only increase productivity, but we would certainly improve safety.
I mean, it's a dark, dreary. A girl I dated for a long time, and she decided she wanted to go see where I worked, so she went on the tour. I was working afternoon, so I was at work so when I came home, I called her and I said, "Well, what'd you think?" She said, "I can see why you're depressed when you come out." She said, "That place is dark, cold, filthy." She said, "How have you stayed there that long? Product of your environment or whatever, you just get used to it." And it was loud. Well, I mean, it's a dangerous, dark place to work. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed nobody got mangled more than they did. And there were some people that had bundles and stuff fall on them. And I mean, it was a dangerous place to work. Don't get me wrong. On those straightening machines, most of the people worked on them for a long time. Most of them don't have all their fingers and things like that.
Dirty. Condition wasn't bad. It was safe. I just did my job. I didn't worry about anything. I just went in, did my job, and came out.
And what you need to visualize in your mind is the scarfing beds. To me, was just like a picture from Dante's Hell. There's all this smoke. There's the noise of the torches and the equipment, and there's all the fire and stuff. There's overhead cranes and stuff.
If you could remember back 20, 30 years ago, you could look out here at Republic Steel and you would see just big orange clouds coming off of those scarfing beds. They had the coke plants up on the hill, and they'd be belching out this anthracite smoke and dust and everything. And so that is what covered this east side of Massillon and the east side of Canton for years.
I don't know this, but I have heard that in Massillon back in the late 30s, 40s, that when the skies were red in Massillon, that everything was good because that meant prosperity, because the skies were red from the open hearth furnaces.
The Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building were sheet products. They were individual sheets. And so I do know for a fact that they were made and they were polished and that they did come from Massillon. I also know that Republic did supply steel that went into the World Trade Center. It was the interior lobby and the stainless steel that encased the elevators. I've seen that myself. I saw it being made, helped make it, and I also saw it after it was installed the second time. You know, that airplane had 3 landing gears on it. 2 out of the 3 came out of Stark County, the steel for it.
We produced the highest quality steel around. One of our biggest customers was Caterpillar Tractor.
A lot of the stainless that was rolled out of Massillon went to auto manufacturers were actually whenever the cars were made of steel.
The story also is that Republic Steel was the first steel surgically implanted into a person. And I don't know whether it was screws to put a hip together or what. We still made steel for the Amish carriages, and we also made steel for NASA.
Oh, I think the union was mostly positive because when I started there, I started at $1.30 an hour. As far as the working conditions, they insist the union was a positive influence there. They made sure that companies adhered to the safest things they could do, and I think the unions gave people somebody to go to. You know, even if they were wrong, they had somebody to complain to. You always need somebody to complain to. You know.
If it hadn't been for the unions, the steel industry would have ran all over the people, which they did up until the time the unions got in. You can see by the way they fought the unions, it was good for the workers to have the unions. They raised their wages, they raised their, improved the safety conditions, vacations, holidays, and everything else.
Back in the 1974 Basic Steel Agreement in Washington, D.C., the steel workers came up with this new fancy pension plan, and they outran their headlights. They made the pension so expensive that it took 30 years. But you had 26 steel companies going to bankruptcy the last 5 years, and all of them are due to the legacy costs.
I just had a good time working there. It made me a good livelihood, and I appreciated all the work. So, I made a lot of good friends down there, and I wish it was still here. Gave everybody a good opportunity to get a job down there and make good wages.
The people there made it tolerable. I mean, I work swing, usually 6 days a week, swing shift, which is intolerable. I don't know, it's intolerable. But there was a lot of good people there, and the people I worked for, the bosses there, they were good. They treated us pretty well. Most of the bosses were good people to work for there.
Oh, well, one thing I could say, I really liked it. I really liked the working down there because it was a stable thing. See, of course, being a member of the union and having a status in the union, of course.
No, I got good memories of the mill. I don't dwell on any bad memories. I always dwell on the good stuff. And the fact is that the people in Massillon were good. It was like a family. It was almost like a neighborhood because up at transportation, the guys who got bear in mind we worked year round. So if you was stuck out there on Thanksgiving, we had a Thanksgiving dinner. You know, we tried to make the work environment as friendly as possible. given some of the background you heard, because this was all dangerous work.
Like I said, I started when I was 18, and I worked there till I was 54. And the memories I have, most of them are really good. I mean, there was a lot of good guys, a lot of hard-working guys. We went through a lot of bad times because every time there was a contract due to come up, all the people that bought steel off of you would stockpile because they were afraid you were going to go out on strike. So once they had stockpiled and you didn't go out on strike, then they didn't need any steel. So it was cyclable. You'd work maybe 6 months, you'd be off 6 or 7 months. But like I said, you know, I mean, it was hard work, but it was good work. It was good pay, and I have good memories of the steel mill.
When I first started stranding, it was very interesting. I was afraid of the bars. Then as time went on, you grew used to it coming at you, all the hot steel being around you. And one time when I first started there, and somebody took off. So I went up on the mill. We was working 5.5 on diamond. And bars are heavy and stuff, so I was helping somebody turn it, put it in the finisher. I stepped across the bar and I caught my pants on fire. Now, I had long johns on, but everything melted into my legs.
But when we got off that job, like on a vacation, we're spitting up phlegm, and it is black. There were no masks that you wore anything, not even a kerchief over your mouth.
When someone needed an electrician or a millwright, they blew a whistle 6 times. That was our signal. And about 2 o'clock one morning, the whistle started blowing like crazy. So we ran over to the stripper shed. The stripper shed is where they would break ingots loose from the molds by sticking it on a machine, and they would pick these molds up with a crane and with 2 chains. One night, one of the chains broke, and the block and tackle came flying up through the air, through the cab, and hit him right in the side of the head and killed him instantly. We had to help clean that mess up. And
Ernie Downard, who was the foreman over this whole scarfing area, said that one night he dreamt that everybody on the schedule showed up for work, and he woke up in a cold sweat. So I had people coming out of the skylights. Because you had to overschedule so much, so you didn't get enough people to run the crew, that because the absenteeism was so high.
want me to tell you how I quit? I got mad one night and told him to take his job and shove it at 3 o'clock in the morning and walked out.
I think it's a shame where it's gone. I think I have good feelings about it and bad feelings about it. You know, I spent my whole life there, really. That's all I've ever done. That if the money would have been put back into the companies instead of into people's pockets, and I'm saying union people and management people.
Yeah,
I'm saying there's a lot of guilt to be spread around that we'd probably still have it here if we reinvested. You know, they blame a lot on the Japanese, but they just took over where we messed up.
Well, my feelings about the steel industry are that it's represented the strength and might of the U.S. economy, and what's happened to the steel industry is often blamed on short-sighted management, but it's really short-sighted public policy that's done it to the industry. And I caution everybody that's in any kind of industry that they're subject to the same plights as the steel industry was.
The Massillon mill was scheduled to be the first mill to go down. That was back in the mid-'70s, and they couldn't get rid of us right up until the end. Couldn't shut us down because we just set more records and rolled more steel. And
Customers would tell them. Customers would tell
Especially
management.
Ford and Caterpillar, they wanted their steel from us.
They would say, well, you know,
Chevy.
we want to shut Massillon down for a while and do some work on it, and we'll roll your steel in Chicago or somewhere
they tell
else.
'em no.
And they go, well, until you get the mill back up and running, don't send us any steel.
The last 2 years, that workforce kept going, kept plugging away. They were setting records on the mill and records in the finishing departments. The morale was down, but the pride was still there. It was the pride, their job, what they could do, how they could work with old and antiquated machinery and equipment.
When we knew we were shutting down, as a supervisor, I was a little fearful I would have some problems. Everybody just kind of resigned themselves to it and made sure they really went out with some dignity. We worked with junk for the last 2 years, and they produced every single day. Sometimes record amounts, which made me pretty proud of them, really. Knowing that they were going to shut them down. It was really sad. I was more sad for the people that I worked with, because there were a lot of people like me who just basically had a high school education, and we really didn't know what we were going to do.
I'm not very happy with what, happened at the end, but I'm pretty positive about it. They provided a good living for me and my family for a long time. I mean, I think we all kind of knew that we were on a short string there. I mean, the day I started there, a lot of the older guys told me, you need to get in Timkins. You're not going to be here more than 2 or 3 years, and they're going to shut this place down. I mean, you live with that hanging over your head so I mean, it wasn't like a big shock when they finally did do it. I mean, I think there was still some people in denial that they would ever shut, because they'd heard it so long. I just kind of thought that phase of my life had passed, and it was, time to move on. And
Right, the best thing was that these guys knew the place was going to shut down. They worked right up to the end, just like they was going to be working there the next 15 years. But those guys had that pride and that work ethic, and they stuck with it right up to December 28th. And yeah, those people at Massillon, you couldn't find a better group of guys to work with.
Really.
As sad as it was, and as too many tears as I shed that day, as many friends as I didn't see anymore after that, that was probably the best day I ever spent in there, as far as being proud to be a steelworker, because they really stood proud and did a good job under the circumstances. And I have visions in my head when the last bar went through the mill. They blew the whistles. Every whistle from the furnace all the way to the end of the mill blew for like 30 seconds. And I mean, guys with their fist in the air, and it was like almost defiant, like, there, you can shut us down, but it doesn't matter, because we did a good job. But to that day, I'll remember the look on everybody's face. We were all, we fought like cats and dogs when we were in there, but when that bar was rolled, we were all friends. Remember that whole area, that it went from Republic to Steel Castings to Tyson's to Eaton. There's nothing there now. It's kind of sad. You drive by there now, and it's just sad that it's not there anymore.
No, it's gone.
It was like it just kind of faded away into the dust.